It's a great honor and a privilege to introduce Helen Heldenmuth, an icon in South Africa, in the arts world. Helen, there is no one like you, and it is really so wonderful to see you today. It's just before New Year's Day, going into 2019, and I really appreciate seeing you today.
Thank you. This is so very exciting. Oh, it's so lovely to be able on the last day of the year to go right through your life. Wonderful. How much time do we need?
We, as long as we can.
Yeah.
Helen, can I ask, where did your parents come from?
Well, my mom came from Riga
Okay.
and my dad from Vilna. As a result of which I speak Yiddish. And, I did speak Yiddish fluently, but when other people hear me speak Yiddish, sie sagen, es sein besser, kann sein viel besser, aber es macht nicht aus. What I just said was it could be very much better, my Yiddish.
And when did they come to South Africa?
My dad came in 1933, I think, and my mom in 1936.
Okay, but your surname is very German. It's
Yeah.
German origins.
Yeah, my late husband came from Wetzlar, and they were from Germany.
And did your parents often speak about the time in Latvia and Lithuania?
You know, my parents, no, they actually didn't. All I knew was that my Bobba made soap in her kitchen from the fat and used to sell the soap. I know so very little, which is a great, great tragedy. But my in-laws always spoke about the Jews down there. You know how it was for the German Jews? They were totally fine and they were fine. The fault of the Holocaust was the fault of the Jews on the other side of the Rhine.
Really?
Yep, absolutely. And I always thought the other side of the Rhine was another side of the Rhine. Yep. Mm. And they were very German. They were very Germanic.
And your parents got on well with your in-laws?
Well, my mom got on well with everybody. She was the most outstanding human being. Nothing made any difference in her life. They like it, they don't like it. Helinke macht nicht aus. It makes no difference.
And did they have siblings or parents that stayed behind, that didn't come to
No,
South
no,
Africa?
no. All excepting my mom's brother, his name was Boris, but he became a White Russian and she never ever met him.
Wow.
Because he was about 30 years older than she was. And when he joined the army, he joined as a White Russian, not as a Jew.
And
And
he
then-
lost contact with the family?
Completely, excepting my mom's sisters. My mom had 4 sisters. Her late sisters tried to make a point of finding him, and they did. They actually did.
Wow.
But she'd never seen him.
But your parents, did they ever talk about their time in Riga and Vilna?
You know that.
Or did they ever want to go back? Did they have fond memories at all?
No. My father would never go back. But my father, of course, loved Vilna because my father there, they were one of the wealthiest families. They brought in the first railroad track. He brought in the first record player. And everybody says, "Oi, in Abramovich's house, there's a dibuk. There's a dibuk in the house." My father was very spoiled. And all his friends called him Vigadnitsky, which means the spoiled one. He was very spoiled, my dad. The women loved him. The men loved him. He had a personality like you cannot actually believe.
Wow. And what made them leave?
Well,
Did
my
they
dad...
see what was
No,
going to be
they couldn't
happening?
stay there anymore because when my Zeta got onto the boat, when he bought tickets for the boat, and he spent a fortune, obviously, on first class, and they were all put into the steerage at the bottom of the boat. And when they got onto the boat, they pulled all my dad's teeth out. My dad had his teeth filled with diamonds.
Wow.
And the Poles just waited and took all the teeth out of all the Jewish immigrants that could afford to. So they came here with absolutely nothing. And my dad became a smos. And my Zeta had fish and chip shops, but he wasn't used to selling things because he gave everything away. So it was an unbelievably interesting story, but a bit of a tragedy. It was a bit of a tragedy, it really was. You know, you've had everything in the world, and then to come to this country and you have nothing.
Well, thank God they left Lithuania.
They left when they did.
Thank God they did.
Now, I often talk, you know, whenever I give talks at the black high schools, And, and everybody says the same thing in this country. Oh, you Jews are so lucky. And my favorite topic is to go and tell them exactly how lucky we are. Coming to a new country where you don't speak a language, where you don't understand a language, where you don't have a cent, where you don't have a penny, and yet education means so much that you actually make it beyond the most extreme odds. And that's what it's all about.
I think they were called greeners when they came
Absolutely,
here.
the greener. You know that song? Do you know that Yiddish song?
You can go ahead.
Zu mir ist gekommen eine Cousine, schön gewollt sie gewesen die greener. She was as beautiful as the woods is greener. Beckelach wie rote Pomeranzen, Fisselach was betten sich zum Tanzen. She had cheeks as red as pomeranzen, come on the top of the rim in pomegranates, yes. And her feet just wanted to dance. Love that song.
Oh, and you spoke Yiddish at home?
I spoke Yiddish to my parents and to my Baba, but I've always loved Yiddish.
It's so expressive and it's so Jewish. It's our culture.
There's not another language, and
you
it's
can't
such a
you
pity.
can't translate it. They're words that are it's just Yiddish.
No, it's phenomenal. And I do this Yiddish program on Chai.
So I listened to it in Israel.
Do you? But my Yiddish isn't as good as it was. You know, the words go, they just fly away. As they say verfliegen, the words just fly away, everything flies away. But I love it. I love Yiddish, I love the feel of it. I think Yiddish is about the only language that has a neshama. But you know what? I love Afrikaans as well. So does Afrikaans. Afrikaans and Yiddish are both languages that are so expressive.
So Hebrew as well. Hebrew, especially Hebrew, but Yiddish, Yiddish is unique. It's absolutely unique.
No, it is. And the interesting thing is, you can translate anything into Yiddish, but you can't translate anything out of Yiddish.
So true.
That's why I love telling all these below-the-belt jokes, because if you tell them in Yiddish, they're okay.
But when you
if
translate,
you tell them in English, it's terrible.
Wow. So where did you grow up? You were in Johannesburg?
In Johannesburg. I grew up in Johannesburg. I went to Fairmount Primary School and Waverley Girls High School, but we started off as Highlands.
And was your family a traditional Jewish family, religious family?
No, unfortunately not. My parents weren't. They weren't at all. They were like all the Russians that came here. I came here singing songs like, "Oh, Moscow mine, so proud and fine, the streets with joy and laughter shine." I was 5 or 6, and these are the songs that I remember. They wouldn't let me go to a Jewish day school because I know when all the chairmen and the big machers of King David's School, which then started in 1948, they all came to my father and said, "Ronke, deine Tochter darf gehen zu King David." And my ma's father said, "My daughter will stay with a mixed up education and she'll learn to mix with everybody." And I never went to a Jewish day school, which I'm really sorry I didn't.
But was your family Zionistic inclined?
My dad had family in Israel, and he would go very often in the late 30s and early 40s he went, I remember that. Were they Zionistically, would he lay his head on a block for Israel? I'm not sure. I really don't recall. All I remember him was talking about Trumpeldor and all these big machers.
And what instilled your love for the arts? And did you always feel as a teenager or in primary school that's the direction you wanted to go?
Well, you see, I was going to be this great actress.
From a very young age?
Oh my God, I was going to be incredible. I was going to be phenomenal. And at the age of 18 or 17, I got the first role in an open audition against, I don't know if you would have remembered Michael McGovern. He was like the top actor here. The nastiest, most horrible man in the entire world. And it was an open audition. And I went and I got the part in Billy Liar. It was phenomenal. I loved it. I loved the rehearsals. But that was it. I didn't fit in. I was a nice Jewish girl from a nice Jewish home, although not necessarily religious. Mm-hmm. But in those days, the backstage was a nightmare. I refused to walk around in brown panties. I didn't swear. I didn't drink. I didn't smoke. So during the breaks from rehearsing, it was a nightmare. They would all tease me, and Michael McGovern was so disgusting. It isn't even worth saying what he said to me. And after rehearsing for about 3 weeks, I went to, now who was I remember his name just now, the director, and I said to him, I can't do it. I love it. I love being on the stage, but I just don't fit in.
Were you the only Jewish girl or the only Jewish?
In the set, in the thing, yep, I think so.
But it wasn't about anti-Semitism.
No, not at all. No,
it's just
no.
That you felt
No, not at all. I just didn't fit in. It was my own fault. I didn't fit in. I didn't fit in with their behaviour. I didn't fit in with their talk. In other words, I was a nice Jewish girl from a nice Jewish home.
Sure.
Yeah, and I thought being on the stage is exactly like being at home, but it wasn't, and I left.
And then what did you do?
And then after that, I went to Wits University, and I started doing, in those days, it was called logopedics, speech and hearing therapy.
Oh,
excuse me,
okay.
logopedics.
We don't use that term anymore.
No, not at all. And I'll never forget, they had an audition for Romeo and Juliet. The Wits University was putting it on. And I got the part of Juliet. Oh my God, that was the highlight of my life. But our English lecturer's daughter also loved the stage, and she also auditioned, and she didn't get it. And her name was Mrs. Rose. I'll never forget. I'm sure she's still around. If you see her, to your grandchildren, wow. I've never forgotten. So she said to me she'd like to make a suggestion that I give up the part.
Wow.
Otherwise I won't get a DP for English at Wits University. Finished and clear. So
That's incredible.
I said, I don't care if I don't do English. I'll just leave. And what did I do? Being as daft as I was, I just left.
And would it really have happened?
Yeah.
I think,
No, 100%. So then, in those days, you could do teaching. You could do a 3-year university and 1-year teaching course, which is what I swapped to, because I'd already had 2 or 3 years at university. And so I swapped to that. But I was never, ever going to teach. Me teach, not on your life. And an interesting thing happened. I was the lift in John Orr's once. Do you remember John Orr's in town?
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
so I'm in the lift. I'm there with my sister.
For those who don't remember, it was a departmental store.
Yeah.
I think it was one of the top departmental stores.
Absolutely. First floor, ladies' underwear. And I luister Sonny, wat sê vir jou gesê daar? Second floor. I used to love it. Oh, I loved it. And I'm in the lift, and this lady stares at me. Like she looks weird with this blonde hair and a caftan top. And she stares at me. I thought, my God, is she mad? She says, you are going to be a teacher. Wow. And you are going to be one of the best teachers and work with children who need you. I looked at her and I burst out laughing. I said, that's the last thing I'll ever do in my entire life. Wow. And you know how many years I taught for? Not only that, there's so many stories that I'm putting these into a book actually, because I'm so against all this business with Ritalin and this and this. You know what, the teacher needs to get involved with the child. She needs to understand the child. She needs to spend time with the child. My teaching years are the happiest years of my life.
Really?
I taught for very many years. I first taught at Waverley Girls High, which I hated, because I went back to my old school, and Miss MacDonald, who was our headmistress, made all the new teachers wait at break to drink their tea until the others had their tea. By the time the others came, tea was over. I hated it. She gave me all the F and G classes for English. And you know, when you love English and you love Shakespeare and you have all these like rock girls, hey? Like, you know what I mean, like really cool, like they laugh at you if you like English or things like that. It was a nightmare. And then there was a post available at H.A. Jack for the then married women teachers. And I taught there for very many years, had the best time. And then King David, and then Red Hill, and the Torah Academy. And then I went to the SABC in when was Mandela released? 94.
Just before 94, but he became president in 94.
Yeah, because then they decided to give all the minority religions an hour of television a week, because it was Christian National Television, our television, if you remember.
Very much so.
No, it was only Christian National Television. Well, this is just another aside. I was kicked out of the SABC 3 times, not once, 3 times I was kicked out. But nevertheless, so the late Rabbi Harris suggested to the head of religion, Professor Salim Balani, what his name was, that I do it. And when Solly phoned me, I mean, you know what I knew about television? Zilch, nothing. I bought books. I pretended that I knew. I bought books and I read every night about production, about filming, about light. I've got stacks of books, learn about. And I said, of course I know. Achmir I knew, but it was wonderful. So when Salim Balani phoned me, he said, no, you're too old. I said, well, how old am I? He said, you're 54. I said, oh, come on, Reverend Mabalani. Our new president is 80, and he's going to be president of an entire country. I'm going to be a little producer of a little Jewish television show. He says, hey, you're too funny, you got the job.
Oh, wonderful.
I know, and they were amazing there. Oh, my God. It was the best working years of my life. There wasn't such a thing as Friday at 1 o'clock, he would say to me, it's your Sabbath, go home. Every Jewish holiday I got off. Never had to pay or refund any money back. They were incredible.
And they gave you the freedom to do...
I had carte blanche.
That's incredible.
I went to, as a matter of fact, I went to Israel and to Russia. I came out with the last lot of Jews that the Keren Hayasot were given permission to take out of Kiev.
Wow.
Because the prices went up per head after they opened Baba Yar. I don't know if you remember Baba Yar and the story of Baba Yar.
I went with my wife. We were in Baba Yar about 3 years ago.
How many years ago? 3 years ago.
And we were in Kiev.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a little bit depressing because you actually see the ramifications of the...
of course.
With Russia and Ukraine and the tensions, and you actually feel it when you're in Kiev.
Well, when I was there this time, this was the first time Baba Yar had ever been opened. You know, they'd always kept it closed. And there was this little boy, I don't know if you know the story of the little boy, who got lost under the bodies and he didn't die. And he managed to escape at night. And he came out of Baba Yar and he hid and he ran away and he was there. And he threw the first rose onto the graves in Baba Yar.
So you were there when you filmed it?
I've got that all on film, yeah.
So he came back all the years, and
yeah.
where does he live?
He went to Israel.
And he especially came back for that.
And he came back for that ceremony. And when I spoke, it was unbelievable. When I spoke to the old people in Yiddish, they all said the same things to me. Shh, wir magnet Yiddish reden nicht kein Yiddish. They still didn't realize that they could talk Yiddish. Now they didn't. These were all the old people. And then we came back with the last lot of immigrants. The last lot. It was quite unbelievable.
So Helen, I don't know if you saw it or when you were there. My wife actually showed it to me. There's a monument of children, 3 children, and nothing about Jews, or it's just 3 children, a statue of 3 children. And when you look closer, she showed me on the boy's head, engraved in the hair, was a yarmulke. It's actually quite amazing. But there's no mention of Jews.
No, nothing.
But in the sculpture who did it put a yarmulke.
Wow.
So you have to look very closely, but if you look on the hair, you'll see this yarmulke, which is actually quite amazing. But the whole area of Baba Yar and the whole story, and today there's very close by, there's a television antenna. It's actually, it's
Now that was really something. That was the most incredible experience. And then we went with the last lot of people that they could put on a certain amount of money per head to Israel. And here were these guys, you know, in these big, you know, these red and white and blue plastic bags. And their feet, they had broken shoes on. And we're all sitting at the airport. And I'm sitting there with my South African cameraman and Paula Sleer. She was hosting the program for me. So I said to them, we've got to film this. I said, Paula, we have to film this. And our cameraman said, definitely not. You're not allowed to film in Russia. I said, I'm in charge. Put it on. So he walks around and the police come. Niet. And he went mad, this Afrikaans guy, because they are a bit scared. And so I said, Paula, do me a favor, get a blanket. We put the blanket over the what's name, and I just pushed
over the camera.
Yeah, and I just pushed it wherever I wanted, and I had the most phenomenal footage. Of feet and legs and swollen legs and arthritis and people crying that they were going to Israel, and they took all the seats out. So we all just sat on the plane, as they did when the Ethiopians came.
And you came with them back to Israel?
I came with them back to Israel.
That must have been absolutely incredible.
And it was phenomenal. The whole thing was unbelievable.
Wow, so you actually documented history.
The whole lot. I had the whole lot there. And that was prior to me meeting Elie Wiesel, Simon Wiesenthal, and Gideon Hausner. Now, I was always an Elie Wiesel freak. You name the book, I've read it. I can quote anything, be it from Night or discussions with God or whatever. That beautiful line that comes from, never will I forget that night. Never will I forget the smoke that destroyed my God forever. Never, not if I live to be as old as God himself. Yep.
It's powerful.
I didn't bring from home the whole thing that Elie Wiesel wrote for me. I'll have to give it to you. Oh, shucks, because I've got it at home in my book from him. Nevertheless, so...
How did you get to meet Elie Wiesel?
No, this was a joke. I always thought everything was a big joke. I'm not very serious about many things. I'm very fortunate that these wonderful things happen and whatever. So many, many years ago, just prior to the first World Gathering of Holocaust Survivors, which was 1979 or 82, one of those days. And I was then the deputy president of the Union of Jewish Women, the youngest deputy president ever, only because they wanted my youth, not me, but nevertheless, you learn that afterwards. So I went to Israel, to the International Council of Jewish Women Conference. Oh, there's another story with that. I had to go and prepare to apologize to the Beth Din, but that's a little bit later. So this friend of mine, Miriam Lazarus, I don't know if you know Miriam Lazarus, she lives in Israel. Miriam said to me, look, let's organize a competition. It's the first World Gathering. You organize the competition, and I promise you I'll find the money. I'll get the money, and it's an essay competition for all the King David schools, all the Jewish day schools, head boys, head girls, Jewish movement heads, and they'll write an essay, and then we'll choose it, and we'll take them to Israel to this first World Gathering of Holocaust survivors.
Wonderful idea.
She'll organize the money, which she did, because at that stage she was very, very friendly with Mark's dad. Damatul, I'll get you the name. Will you take out this Damatul in business and all these flips and everything? And she said to him, I remember his name in 2 minutes, and she said to him, we want to raise money to take the youth as well as that journalist, whatever his name was, and we'll find the money. And he said to Miriam, I'll tell you what, Miriam, for every rand that you bring in, I'll multiply it by 100. And we took 15 young people, leaders, staying in the best hotels in Israel, then off to Jerusalem.
And these were from South Africa?
From South Africa, only South Africa.
And were they from different schools?
Different schools.
All over the country?
Every school, every youth movement. We took one from each. We took B'nai Akiva, Habonim. It was very, very difficult because, the dynamics is so different today than what it was then, particularly with B'nai Akiva, but whatever.
But I think then it was more unified.
Sort of. But it was incredible. They all came with. And I was meeting Miriam. You see, I went to Israel to represent the South African Jewish women at the International Council of Jewish Women. But there was a week in between. And in that week in between, after that, they had the first World Gathering of Holocaust survivors. So we worked it that I would be there, I would go to Eilat for a week in between.
That's wonderful.
Oh, but there's another wonderful story attached to Eilat. Oh my gosh, forgot about that.
We've got plenty of time, but your stories are riveting.
So we get to Israel, and I'm meeting Miriam at the Hilton in Israel.
In Tel Aviv.
Yeah, we're staying there. And I'm sharing a room with her because there's no ways in a million years I could have ever afforded to stay there. And so we're all sitting at the pool. Now, those were my bikini years.
So Hilton, that was in the early 80s we're talking about. So there weren't that many five-star hotels in Tel Aviv at that time.
No, about 3.
Hilton was the top hotel.
Yeah, it was wonderful. So I'm sitting at the pool, and there were these men from America. And you know how these men talk with their loud voices, and they don't stop, but they don't talk, they shout. And so there's Miriam, Irene Zuckerman, and myself. And they're sitting and looking at us, at people that go on holiday on their own. And this guy's talking to his friends, and I said, Miriam, if he dare come here, there's going to be a big problem. Miriam said to me, keep your big jaw shut. Don't say anything. So this guy comes over me all schwitzy and big and revolting, and he says, I think you have a beautiful body. And he looks at his friends and he winks, and all his friends smile back at him. So I said, thank you very much. Oi, aber guck wie du guckst zu Reus. But this one went on for a long time. Do you understand English?
Yeah, sure.
I said, guck wie du guckst zu Reus. I sei fett, I sei schrecklich. Aber du musst sein, er sei reich. Sag mir etwas. Doch seinen Diamanten dort in der Chai. Oh, there's diamonds in your Chai. And he looks at me, feeling a little bit uncomfortable. And he wore a bracelet. And the bracelet had his name on in diamonds.
Wow.
And what was the name? Sheldon. Can you believe it? Sheldon. Of all the names, Sheldon. So I said, aber du musst eine sehr reich. Ja, you are such a rich man. Hab ich ein Einikel in Afrika. Come to South Africa. They'll take you to the plastic in the Selten. So abschnitzen dem Fett zwischen dein Fies. Du guckst euch so sehr schrecklich. Aber du bist sehr reich. But I carried on in that vein, but for a long time. But,
so just to translate for those who don't understand, I don't know if you can translate.
I can translate the whole lot. So he comes to me and he says, oh, I think you got a beautiful body. So I said, thank you very much. Thank you very much. But look what you look like. I say fat, I say big, you're so heavy. What is that? A diamond. He wore a chai around his neck. And the little comb on the diamond was a big diamond.
Oh.
He had his name in bracelets, Sheldon, diamonds. And I said, oh, you must be such a rich man. Have I got an nickel? I love the girl. Come to South Africa. They'll cut you in the stomach. They'll take it all off. And you'll be there. You'll look lovely. You'll be a young man. His friends were killing themselves laughing.
How did he respond?
Terrible. I thought he was going to hit me or throw me in the water. My friend Miriam Lazarus, who had a suede costume, jumped into the water. Everybody ran as far away from me as possible. So he disappears. He goes to his friend, really his tail between his legs, because I said terrible things. I really did. And as loud as he spoke, I spoke louder. So then this gorgeous-looking man, whom I knew straight away, because I'd read every one of Elie Wiesel's books, every single one. I haven't missed out one. Beggar in Jerusalem, Night, all of them. He comes up to me and he says, Das ist äußerst gewöhnlich.
Oh, that's outstanding.
That was outstanding. And I took a look at him and I said, I know who you are. Well, if you know who I am, you've gone up in my estimation. Who am I? I said, you're Elie Wiesel. And he said, my God, how do you know who I am? And he carried on and on and on. And I told him when he came to South Africa, I stood outside Wits University to try and hear him talk, but we couldn't even get in onto the big steps. Do you remember when he came here many years ago? And I told him I'd read every book trying to schmooze him a little bit, but in any case, he wasn't interested. So he said to me he'd never laughed so much in his life. He was hysterical. And he said, do I see his friends over there? So I looked at the guy. I recognized the woman. She was a movie star. That was Marissa Berenson. And there was this other guy and another guy. He said, my friend wants to meet you. I said, I'm terribly sorry, you'll have to come here. I don't walk in a pink bikini. I only lie or stand. Otherwise, I get an asthma attack from pulling my stomach in. So he became hysterical with laughter. He says, no, I've got to spend time with you. So he calls his friend to me, who's Jack Eisner. I don't know if you read Jack Eisner's book, The Survivor.
No, I've heard it. Sure.
That's a must. That's a must. Jack Eisner actually financed the first world gathering of Holocaust survivors.
Really?
Yeah, he became an international multi-billionaire. As a matter of fact, Eisner from Disney was his grandson, but they never saw one another because he wasn't interested in Judaism. Oh well, so Jack Eisner comes, now real fancy pants, like these New York guys that have fancy pants, like blue jeans, white shirt, blue socks, the whole thing that's very wealthy. Things come up to me. He says, he loved the Yiddish. Do I always talk Yiddish? I said, yes. He says, do let me Yiddish reden. So I said, let me reden. He says, let's talk Yiddish. And we spoke Yiddish. He says, do you know who I am? But Elie Wiesel said, Jack Eisner. He mentioned the name. I said, you're Jack Eisner. As a matter of fact, I've just read your review on the book in Time magazine. It was a book called The Survivor. Oh, it was fantastic. It was unbelievable. It was the story of his 4 best friends who were the smugglers in the Warsaw Ghetto, and how each and every one of them were murdered, and how he survived because his Bobbers said to him, Jacek, du darfst leben. Du darfst erzählen den ganzen Welt. You've got to live. You've got to tell the whole world what had happened. And he thought he would be the last Jew left in the world. And he thought they'd put him in a cage to see what a Jew looked like, an authentic Jew. His story was unbelievable. So he says to me there and then, do you read? I said, of course I read. He says, would you like to read the book? I said, I'd love to read the book. He says, this was about 11 in the morning. He said, how long will it take you? I said, how long was the book? Well, I met him 4 o'clock for coffee. And I read that book and my whole life had changed. I didn't feel funny. I couldn't be funny. He says he doesn't want to see me. He wants to hold me. What am I talking like this for? It's all over. So I read the book and then he told me they did the play on Broadway. Would I like to read the play? It's now 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Tomorrow, the next day, I'm off to Jerusalem. I said, I'd love to. He says, how long will it take? I said, a play takes a very long time. Maybe 4 o'clock in the morning. 4 o'clock in the morning, the phone goes to meet him for breakfast. I read it, and it was shocking. It was typical American. I said, it was the worst thing I've ever read. Your book was so fantastic. This is so kitsch. It is shocking. Did I see it in New York? I said, no. He said, it came off after a week. I said, I understand it came off. It was terrible. So what does he do? He phones his playwright, Susan Nanush. If you look up Susan Nanush, she writes all these soapies. Sends for her. She arrives the next day in Israel, so I can rewrite the play with her. And I knew nothing about it. What did I know? Nothing.
This is incredible.
Yep. So then he said to me, and it was lovely, and I would sit with them and be with them. Now we're leaving the next day for Jerusalem. So I said, I'm leaving for Jerusalem. He says, no, you're not. He says, you're staying here. I said, I'm not. I can't afford to stay here. I'm sharing with my friends. He says, you're staying. The Hilton hotels belong to me. They belong to me. Hilton's my partner. My 20% partner, I think you said.
Wow.
So I stayed there in the most unbelievable suite. Oh, I said, Miriam, I have to. And Miriam says, you know what? Take advantage of the situation. So I stayed there with Elie Wiesel, and he drove with me every day into Jerusalem in this beautiful air-conditioned limo. We all went. It was Elie Wiesel, myself, Jack Eisner. And the third day, Gideon Hausner had just arrived from, I don't know, he was giving a talk at the World Gathering. And
so for our listeners who are watching this, Gideon Hausner was very involved with the Eichmann
yes,
trial.
Please. Yeah, no, Gideon Hausner, he did all the Eichmann trial. He followed, he was phenomenal. Oh my gosh. They were all unbelievable, all of them. And then, I'll never forget, this is just an aside, one day Jack Eisner says to me, look, we're going to dinner at Menachem tonight, and my girlfriend, his girlfriend was Marissa Berenson, the movie star. She doesn't want to go. Do you want to come? I said, which Menachem? He says, Menachem Begin. I said, what do you mean do I want to come? Of course I want to come. And Menachem Begin was like my Seder. We just spoke Yiddish the whole time. Just in Yiddish. Oh, he was phenomenal. I even remember his smell.
Well, and this is when he was Prime Minister?
Yep. So we went to Menachem Begin for dinner.
And Elie Wiesel joined you?
Elie Wiesel was there, and Simon Wiesenthal was there, and Gideon Hausner was there. And then we were having such a fun evening and telling all jokes and stories. So Gideon Hausner, how old is he today? Is he still alive?
I'm not sure. I must check it out.
I don't know either. And he says, look, we're all going to, he stayed in, what is that beautiful area with the mountains and the rocks, Caesarea. He had a home in Caesarea, my God. So we all stayed there for the weekend in Caesarea, as long as I told them jokes. So I told them jokes and I stayed in Caesarea.
Helen, you could...
No, so that was quite an amazing feat.
And that evening with Menachem Begin, I mean, Menachem Begin was such a dynamic person. It must have been the most unbelievable evening that you had.
What do we talk about? Jewish food, Jewish cooking.
And not politics?
A little bit of politics here and there. It was just the most amazing evening. It was really fantastic. I could have been with my Zayda. It was a wonderful, 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 warm evening.
And with Elie Wiesel, was it easy to speak to him? Was he open?
Very, very open. Oh, we spoke about so many things. And he wrote me this beautiful thing, and it starts off with, Dear teacher, I am a survivor of the Holocaust. I have seen learned men, I've always known it. I think Judy might have a copy. She might have a copy because I gave it to her to use for one of her Emunah talks. It's beautiful. It's an incredible thing. It ends up with, teach your children to respect one another. Oh, no, it's beautiful. I'm sure Judy's got it. If not, I'll get it from home, and you can do whatever you want with it because it's worth using. It is so beautiful.
And did you keep a connection with Elie Wiesel after?
Sorry?
Were you in
the
touch
whole
with
time
him?
afterwards, until before he died. They wanted him to come out here again, but he was too ill.
I remember they wanted him to come out.
Yep, and when I went to Miami, I spoke to him in Miami, but his wife said he was too sick. He wasn't well at all.
I remember he did a documentary with Oprah Winfrey.
That's right.
They went to...
Quite right, they went to Auschwitz.
To Auschwitz, and that really exposed to so many people who don't know about the Shoah.
And who don't know Elie Wiesel, and who don't know his writings. I don't know if you read In Conversation with God. I think this was all when he gave up his religion, because he then turned. They were very frum. He came from a very, very frum family.
Sure,
yeah, and then, like when he said, never will I forget that smoke that devoured my God forever, never. Not till I lived to be as old as God himself. He was really something. In any case, I asked Jack Eisner if I could take his book and rewrite it my way into a play, which I did with Red Hill, the kids at Red Hill. And we were runners-up at the Raps Play Festival. We should have won.
Do they still have the Raps? It's still going?
Not as it used to. Now I won't go into it. But no, we were runners-up, but I know we should have won. We were by far the best, but we didn't win. And I said to the kids, look, we can't always win everything, so don't worry. But it was incredible.
Have they ever made a movie, or are they thinking of making a movie of it?
Oh, they made a movie of Jack Eisner's life. So Jack Eisner phones me. So Jack says to me, you don't talk like a South African. I lived with a South African for 3 years. You don't talk like her. She was a beauty queen. I think she was Miss World. I don't know. He says, what was her name? He says, Annalene Kriel.
He was with Annalene Kriel?
Yep. And when I came back from Israel, it was Theo Rutstein's son's bar mitzvah. And Theo Rutstein is Sol Kersner's Theo Rutstein's uncle. So I said to Theo, do me a favour, Theo, just introduce me to Annaline, because Jack Eisner said if I ever see her, I must give her his love. Didn't want to know me with this gorgeous ponytail and this magnificent face. I said to her, look, all I want to say is I have regards from you from Jack Eisner. Oh, no, shh, don't say anything loud here. Hey? Can we go outside and talk? Do you know, I lived with him. I lived with him. Did you also live with him? I said, no, I didn't live with him. And he wouldn't marry me because I wouldn't convert.
And then she later converted, which was a
when she went for Saul Kersner,
yeah.
Yeah. So then I used to go and see her, and she was a very lonely person. And then Jack Eisner phoned me from America, and he said, look, I want you to come with me to Paris. You're going to meet Roman Polanski, because I want you to write the film script, because Roman Polanski wants to do my book into a movie. And having just read, did you ever read Peter's Principle? Or don't read these books on these psychological rubbishes. And you know, we should only do what you know you can do. Because if you can't do something and you say yes, then it'll bring you right down or whatever. And having read Peter's Principle, I thought to myself, number one, I've got 2 small children, and my son wasn't so small. My daughter was a little girl. Do I want to leave them for so long? He said I can come back every 2 weeks. And the answer was no. Do I know anything about script writing? The answer was no. Do I drink or smoke or take drugs? The answer was no. So I said, and Jack Eisner came here. He came to fetch me. So
he came to South Africa
to meet my husband, who wanted me to go because I didn't know he had a girlfriend, but never mind. That's not important. Of course you must go. What an opportunity. Bobby, I mean, how can you let me go? And especially with what's a Roman Polanski, you know.
Very checkered past.
Not the greatest reputation.
No, I think he still wanted in America. He can't go back to
That's
America.
right, but I chose not to go. No, I didn't go. I thought, I don't know enough about filming. I don't mix with these
That was very
people.
wise. That was very wise.
Yeah.
Because you're right, if it's not your field...
No, I don't drink.
But it was such an honour to be invited.
Yeah.
I mean, what a schut, what a...
But he came here. He came to fetch me because he spoke to Bobby, told Bobby he'd met me and everything, and he'd phoned Bobby the whole time. And Bobby said, of course you must go, of course you must go. But I chose not to go. So we go to Sun City with... this was so funny.
Did you ever have regrets by not going?
Mm-mm.
You never?
No. You know what? I don't have regrets about anything.
It's a wonderful outlook.
If that's a decision I've made it and finished and clear. I never say, should have, could have, would have, didn't. If you didn't do it, you didn't do it. No, I've had no regrets about not going. Even when I saw the film, which was awful, it was called In Love and War.
I must try and get it.
That was a film.
But it wasn't a bestseller or...
It came out, absolutely. It was a story of the survivor.
And was it well recognized?
I believe so, yes, very good. It came out in about 1985 or 86, I can't remember.
I must try to see it.
Yeah, but that was a phenomenal time. And then Jack got ill, and Jack died, and Eddie Wiesel died, and I don't know if Simon Wiesenthal died.
He did die. Simon Wiesenthal eventually did die.
And Gideon Hausner?
I'm not sure.
He was a bit of a snob, hey?
But I just want to mention, you mentioned with Eddie Wiesel and his faith, he might, it's very hard for us to judge what he saw and what he lost, but he still remained so connected to the Jewish people and to Israel. And
unbelievably.
He remains an icon. He remains a tremendous hero.
To me, he's the prophet of the Holocaust, without a doubt. Whatever he's written, all his philosophies, he was amazing. I was mad about him. He was really, really the most outstanding man.
And unassuming. He was very approachable and...
Totally unassuming. You would have never thought he was who he was.
I mean, to have received a Nobel Prize. And,
yeah, he was just quite amazing. I had the most marvellous time with him. We would walk through, because they had it in Jerusalem, and we would walk through that one tiny little street. Oh, it was fantastic. I was just trying to sort of remember or picture things that had happened. And he was just marvellous. So Jack Eisner sends me after he sent Susan Nunnish to rewrite the play, going back to where I was there, Susan Nunnish was the playwright that wrote the movie that was terrible, whatever. So I rewrote it with her, but I didn't charge him. It was just an incredible opportunity. So the next day, I get a box, a choker with emeralds and diamonds,
Wow.
a bracelet with emeralds and diamonds. And he says to me, I said, Jack, I can't accept this. He says, I'll write you a letter that my girlfriend was what's her name, Helen Berenson. I didn't need you. So I said, I'm not accepting it. And I took it back to the jewellery shop, which was Eisner's. So I took it back. I couldn't accept it. No, not in a million years. So the next day, I receive a coffin. I'm telling you, a coffin of flowers, the size of this
Wow.
dining room table. And it was a wonderful experience. Whoa, it was incredible. And that's just a tiny little, just a little touch of all the various incredible things that have happened. And the interesting thing is that most of these incredible happenings happened from talking Yiddish. Talking a little bit of Yiddish.
If he wouldn't have heard you speaking
No.
to,
Never.
then Eloise wouldn't have come up to you.
Not in a million years.
So it's all Mina Shema. It was all meant to be.
Not, absolutely. Not in
and you
a
had the
million
confidence
years.
to do what you did. And
No, not in a million years. When I saw him, I knew who he was straight away because he dressed so beautifully.
Well, I want you to know, Helen, I have a patient, a relative, a very close relative of Eddie Wiesel in Jerusalem, who's very religious, and her family's religious, and they speak very highly of Eddie Wiesel. So he came from an exceptionally religious family, and part of the family also went through the Holocaust, and but they speak very highly of him. And you know, everybody has their own decisions to make, but he remained, and he still will always remain, an icon.
No, he was amazing. That man he was absolutely amazing. But I think the most important thing is that if you want to do things, you've got to do it. Don't say, I'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a good idea, but maybe yes, maybe no. Get up and do it, even if you know it's the wrong thing. So now we're going to go back to my teaching years.
Okay, I just want to ask you about WITS, because I'm quite involved with WITS in Israel. Now, when you were at WITS, you qualified and you graduated at WITS?
At WITS in the College of Education.
Okay, and
3 years and 1 year, the 4-year combined course.
And were you associated with the university as well?
Absolutely. I know now I was on the SRC. I was very, very involved because in 1958, when they started with the initial, where black people weren't allowed to go to Wits University, that was 57, 58. And we had all those demonstrations outside Wits. I was arrested twice. As a matter of fact, I was arrested, but not for Wits. I was arrested for having black children in my home. I spent a night in jail.
Really?
A nice Jewish girl with all these lovely prostitutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because of the draconian apartheid laws. It was,
No, well, I don't know if you want, I had this lady who started working for me. And one day her little girl comes and I said, Sophie, who's this? And she said, this is my daughter. I said, your daughter's very ill. She has kwashiorkor. She's dying. No, I mustn't say that. I said, but it's true. Why didn't you tell me? She said, because if I'd have told you, I would have lost my job and I wouldn't be able to give my mother money. I said, forget it. Your child is very, very ill. She'll stay here.
How did you know? How did you diagnose it?
I could see. You know, when you've got when your little legs are spindly and your stomach is totally distended.
And this was in Joburg?
She brought her to visit her mom. She had to smuggle her in to see her mother. So I said, she's very, very ill. She's not going home. So Sophie says, I thought I wouldn't have a job. I said, well, forget it. She'll stay here till she's well. So she stayed with us until she was well, which wasn't very difficult. And then, you know, in those days you had to sign a form that said, the West Rand Administration form, that said, no black coloured child or anybody will be on your premises, out, finished and clear. It was a legal document. If you employed somebody, you couldn't have their husband, children or anybody or parents on your premises. So of course you sign it.
You had to sign the form?
Yes, I've got them at home. I've got the forms at home. So if you want them, I can show them to you. So I signed this form, and my next door neighbour complained that I had a black child in my house.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's terrible.
my next door neighbour complained. And so the police came, and I said, look, she's only staying here. She's not allowed in your house. Okay, she'll stay outside. But she'll only stay here until she gets better. Okay. So she gets better, so the police come again, and she's still there, and the police come again, and she's still there. And I go to court maybe, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 times, and I said, thank goodness I can afford to pay for the life of a child. Eventually, they came on a Saturday night, the police reservists. And who were the police reservists? You tell me.
I wouldn't like to say they were.
They were. Yeah. It was actually one of my husband's friends. And I think, I know he had something to do with it. Nevertheless, they came on a Saturday night because I had broken the law 15 times. They had every one of those law things. And they arrested me. I had bail of 15,000 rand. Now, in
15,000 rand was a lot of money.
A lot of money then.
Money, sure.
And I don't know if you ever knew Gerald Carlson. Did you ever know him? Gerald Carlson was a great political lawyer. He actually had to leave the country. His kids went to Jack in those days, and I was very friendly with them. And I got my husband to phone him, and he came to court on the Sunday morning and managed to get me out.
For helping it's
Yeah.
ludicrous if you think about it.
But that's not all. The interesting thing about this is that after 2 or 3 weeks, I used to get a call. Luister, vat daardie koffertjie weg. Hulle kom weer. This guy would phone me and warn me. And I'd put her in my car.
From the police station?
Yeah. And I'd put her in my car. And in those days, you weren't allowed to drive with a black person in your car. You couldn't give a black person a lift unless you had a special form. And we would put her on the floor and she would lie covered with a towel.
This is in the 50s?
No.
Or the 60s?
No,
Early
60s. No, it's early 60s now. I was then teaching at Jack. This was late 50s, early 60s.
Wow.
And I was teaching at Red Hill. No, so this was the middle 60s. Maybe late 60s. So I used to take her to Red Hill School because nobody ever came or inspected that school. And they had a nursery school there, no black children, but Amanda was the first black child there. And then when she had to go to primary school, she couldn't go because they've got to be registered. So what did I do? I wrote to the Department of Education and I told them that I have a child, I didn't say she was black, who can't go to a normal school, and these are my qualifications. Can I register her to be taught at home? They didn't check anything. And they said yes. And after a year, when she did grade 1 so brilliantly, and they sent an inspector, they saw that she was black. Everything was null and void. She didn't pass. She had to repeat grade 1, because I wasn't allowed to have her in Glen Hazel. So then we found an uncle who lived in Kimberley, and this poor little girl of 6 years old would go by train on a Sunday night and go to school in Kimberley, and I sent all the books and everything. As a matter of fact, I'm still in touch with the teacher.
Amazing.
Amanda's now 45, I think, 44, 45.
And you have a connection?
With her other sister, yes. With her, none whatsoever. I brought up her 3 boys, and she was a lovely girl. And then she became a Sangoma. And then in her Sangoma school, she met another woman who said she has no right to have a white Jewish friend if she's a Sangoma. And the two of them started living together. She kicked her mom out. It's become a nightmare. But the other sister, Cece, whom I brought up, she went to Wits University doing law. It's another story. And but it's very interesting.
So at Wits, because I'm quite associated with Wits, they did accept blacks eventually, and it was one of the very few places. No, Nelson Mandela was at Wits.
It wasn't easy those days.
It wasn't easy, but it was one of the very few places.
Yep.
Very, very few places that blacks could be admitted, and it was like an island in a peaceful island in a very friendly neighborhood. It was one of the very few places where blacks were actually could learn
Absolutely.
in a normal environment.
Talk about Nelson Mandela. I had a wonderful relationship with him. As a matter of fact, I wrote a song for him. I should give it to you. I'll give you a copy. When are you going back home? Tomorrow?
No, I'm still here for two weeks.
Oh, good. I'll get you a copy of the CD. What actually happened was the Ben Gurion University gave him an honorary doctorate. Do you remember?
I remember that.
And the government wouldn't let him go to Israel.
I remember that.
So the whole Senate of the Ben Gurion University came to South Africa. The entire Senate, came to Cape Town University. And I don't know if you know the opera singer Viva Pelham. Did you ever know of her,
Sure,
Viva?
sure.
Well, she sang, I wrote the song, and then I was at the SABC filming. And I never asked permission. Never. I learned one thing in life. If you ask permission and they say no, you can't do it. If you ask permission and they say, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know, it was much easier. So
I've used that.
have you?
Sure.
So I'm busy filming Mandela. Oh, he spoke and all the guys spoke from Ben Gurion University. Oh, it was fantastic. All in their glad velvet robes, and the whole Senate moved up. Oh, it was wonderful. It was absolutely fantastic. So I thought, I've got to film this. So I'm busy filming this, and then Aviva Pelham with a black tenor sang the song that I wrote, because I write a lot of poetry and songs and things like that. And all of a sudden, these two big, hefty men come with us onto the stage. Oh my God, do you have permission to film? Well, I'm not really sure, but I don't care, but come onto the stage. So come onto the stage, and there's Mandela. He throws his arm around me. He kisses me. I've got all those pictures at home, and he says, those are the best lyrics ever written about me, ever.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I had to give him a copy of the lyrics. So eventually we're talking. So I said, you've achieved so much. There's only one thing lacking. I said, you were in jail for 27 years. You've done this, you've done this, you've done... Oh, I'm calling Judy, you've done every single thing. I said, but you've never married a Jewish woman. I said, how about a Jewish woman? I make the best colours. So he laughed hysterically, it was wonderful. And we remained friends.
But before he married Graça Michelle, he invited Cyril Harris. He saw him before he got married and asked him for his blessing.
Yeah. Well, I was very, very friendly with Cyril Harris. Oh, I loved him. I loved him with a passion. I won't tell you what I said to him. It wouldn't be nice.
Sure.
Can I, Judela?
No. I'm listening quietly.
Wow.
No.
Helen,
really.
so you had a very close connection with Nelson Mandela as well.
Absolutely. And when I did all the filming for the Jewish television, I mean, he was always there. He was always in everything. When he came down to Orange Farm in a helicopter, and all the kids from Orange Farm came running under the helicopter. Oh, it was wonderful. He was a great man, a really, really great guy.
So I'm very close with Dov Sadovsky.
Oh.
And his father was the first
The
person
first
to
person
give him a
job.
Yeah.
Mm.
We had an event in Yerushalayim at World Mizrahi, and the press were there, Jerusalem Post, and was very well attended. And Dov spoke, and we showed movies, and maybe when Mandela came to Israel with Molly Bethlehem.
That's right.
When he eventually came to Israel, and it was just so inspiring.
No, well,
And the
Marlene's
audience-
super. Marlene's super. Mad about Marlene. She's somebody that says things and does it.
Just like you.
No, I don't do everything that
it's-
I'd like to do, everything that I would have done. But I did lots. I did lots of crooked things. I did. I crooked kids' marks. I did.
My
But
wife's a teacher. So.
Is she?
No, but
But-
you know what?
no, but this is-
Maybe to encourage kids.
No.
there's,
These are. Well, I taught. I loved. I don't know how she knew that I was going to teach. But who did they give me? All the kids that had problems. Wherever there was a problem, oh, don't worry, Helen will have it. Even when I went to the Torah Academy, where I only did educational drama, came Thursday, the naughtiest Rabbonim. I see all of them jumping off the roof. They were the naughtiest little boys. Nevertheless, but I enjoyed it.
But
I really loved it. But at H.A. Jack, they only would you like these two? These are, I mean,
Absolutely,
this has got to do with teaching.
It's wonderful.
So when I went to Waverley, I think I started with Waverley. Did I tell you that I hated it and all the teachers? Yes, I mentioned it. So then eventually I get a job at H.A. Jack. And it was lovely. And Mr. Foote was our headmaster. And he was really he was an educationist, not like the late Dr. Baron, because there was nobody in this entire world like the late Dr. Baron, who was at King David.
That's right.
I learned everything from Dr. Baron. He was the most marvellous man in the entire world. So in any case, Mr. Foote comes to me and he says, Helen, we have a bit of a problem. What? We have this child, but he was in Norman Boys' Home. And you know, if a kid's in a reformatory, you don't have to take them in a government school. Do you know that? No. If a kid was in a reformatory or arrested, you don't have to take them. And he said, now this boy was impossible. He was in Norman Boys' Home. He was in jail for stealing bikes, for cutting tires, for you name it, he did it. Well, I have him in my class. I said, sure, I don't mind. So all of a sudden he arrives with his parents. His father was a very, very wealthy estate agent, and his wife was number 3, and they all hated him. He was tall and big. So you can imagine a tall, big boy, standard 5 in a khaki safari suit. So he stands and he looks at me and he says, you can't teach me. He had the worst stutter you'd ever heard. I said, maybe I can't, but I'll try. Father really wanted to hit him across the face. I told the father to go home. He comes into my classroom, puts his feet on the desk, takes out a cigarette. This is standard 5. So I said to him, Charles, I'm going to use his name because he knows I tell the story. So I said to him, Charles, I don't mind if you smoke, but I have very bad asthma and I'm allergic to cigarette smoke. So whenever you feel like a cigarette, don't even ask me. Take a cigarette and go to the bottom of the playing field and don't let anybody see you, because I'm not getting into trouble for you. And he would do that. He took the cigarette, slammed the door, and out he goes. Did no schoolwork. Father used to come and scream at me because he did no schoolwork. I said, you hit him? He said, yes. I said, was he punished at Norman Boys' Home? Always in trouble. I said, what can I do to him, do you think, that's going to make him change? I said to the father, there's nothing left for me to do. I said, just leave him. And if he doesn't do any work, he does no work. Tough luck. So one day, for the first time in weeks, I see a scruffy piece of paper on my desk. I open it up and it's a mess. I said, whoever did this is a genius, but I'm not a dustbin. So if you want to give it to me, write it out neatly. I roll it up, throw it in the bin. Next day, same thing. Next day, same thing. Then I called him after break. I said, Charles, I said, did you do this? He said, yes. You know, he didn't say yes. He said, he couldn't talk at all. I said, you're a genius, my boy. I said, but I'm not going to mark it. I said, because I'm not a lavatory and I'm not a dustbin. I will buy you a book. You do it in a book. The next day, he does it in a book. Everything is correct. I go to Highlands High, and I asked for Form 1 Maths. By the time 4 months had gone up, he was doing grade 3 and 4 Maths. He was brilliant. He was a genius, but absolutely impossible. Then I'm doing a play. Oh, it was lovely. We did A Midsummer's Night Dream, and I'm taking singing. Because I play the piano, I had to do all the singing and the hymns. You know how it is in a government school. And I hear this voice. I thought, oh my God, I have never heard anything like it. So I said, Charles, do me a favor. There's a voice over here that I cannot believe it's the best I've ever heard. Please walk through the whole school and find it for me. So Charles gets up, big. Nobody. I said, you know why it's nobody? Because it's you. I said, you are singing like that. I said, you're going to be in the play. He says, no, I'm not. I said, yes, you are. He says, no, I'm not. I said, oh, yes, you are. And I wrote him a part as Oberon. I didn't have an Oberon in this, just a little part. I made it bigger, and I gave him a thing to sing. He was outstanding, but what did he do? As Titania swang across the stage in her bower, he cut the ropes.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. And she fell. I knew he did it because nobody else would do it. But I didn't tell on him or anything. I left it. I said, you know, had she hurt herself or broken her back, you would have been back in Norman Boy's home, my boy. I said, don't throw away what you've got. Really, you have a gift that I've never heard. It always makes me want to cry when I think of this part of it. So he took part, and he took part in the play. And every time he sang, he got a standing ovation. Now, it's the end of Standard 5. He passes Standard 5, does brilliantly. He's got to go to boarding school now. His father won't have him. His stepmother won't have him at home. So he goes to boarding school. I don't hear from them or anything. And about 5 years later, I get a call. Hello, is that Mrs. Heldenmuth speaking? I'd love you to be guest of honour. I'm putting on a musical for Norman Boy's home. It always brings tears when I think of this call, and I'd like you to be my guest of honour. Who's speaking? Charles Barrett.
Wow.
I said, whoa, what? Yeah. Now, he put on this play, and today he's a top lawyer, and he works with children that have problems.
That is incredible. Helen,
Yeah.
this is beyond belief.
So if anybody that's watching this was at H.A. Jack in these years, these are your stories, guys. There are hundreds of them.
So
There's not
somebody
one.
who stutters, you have the gift for singing, and
He
it didn't.
stopped stuttering everything. Now he doesn't stutter at all. But he was obviously definitely a mental, because his father hated him, his stepmother hated him. He was always punished. I mean, psychological. Without a doubt. That's why I always say there's so much that one can do in education. Instead of saying, Ritalin, give them Ritalin, or they can come 12 o'clock and give them, what's that other one, Sorodin or Mchidin, whatever.
So true. So
Bullshit.
true.
Excuse my language.
But there are not too many teachers like you, Helen.
Bullshit. I had another girl. Have you got time for one more story?
We've got time for plenty of stories.
Have you? Oh.
These are gems. It's real gems.
I had another girl. I was in my class one day, again at H.A. Jack, which was a wonderful school, and I see this little girl, her name was Anne Worthington. I said, Anne, what's wrong? She was sleeping. She said, my brother kicked me out of the house last night. They took my mother away and took her to an institution, and my father is in America bringing the first plane in for Anglo-America, the first four-seater. And she didn't sleep, so I went to Mr. Foote, the headmaster. I said, Mr. Foote, there's nobody looking after Anne. Her brother locked her out of the house, stole all her mother's things. I think her brother's on drugs as well. So I said, can she come and stay with me? I only had a one-bedroom flat. And no, Gary had his own room, a two-bedroom flat here in Charltondale. So he said, well, he has to get permission from the school committee. And in those days, who was the school committee? Dr. Benjamin, but not your Dr. Benjamin, Jude. He was a doctor. And he says, by the time we get her into an orphanage, let her come and stay with you. So she stayed with me. And she stayed with me every year. And when my mom got out of hospital, and it was Yom Kippur, I'll never forget, she wouldn't eat. And it was...
She wasn't Jewish.
No, she wasn't Jewish. So she came to stay with me. So I said to Mr. Foote, what are we going to do with Anne? Because there's no way she'll pass at the end of this year. No ways. Her IQ was unteachable. Her IQ was maybe 28 or 29. Do you know how low that is? So I said to him, what are we going to do? She can't fail. Because if she fails, there is no ways it'll help her. No ways at all. So I said, what happens if I lose her Ed Lab card? I don't know, how long have you been in Israel?
Maybe 25 years.
Oh, wow. So you would know it, and your wife would know what an Ed Lab card is. That's a card that you fill in for every child that you ever teach next to the nearest 5 or 0, their marks and their IQ. It is the most official of all educational documents. You are not allowed to lose it. So I said to Mr. Foote, what happens if I lose it? Don't tell me you're going to lose it. I said, there's a possibility. You've got to go to Pretoria, sign an affidavit. I've got to go to the police station and sign an affidavit that you're honest enough not to crook. So I said, no, that's a bit much. So the next day I go to him, I said, Mr. Foote, guess what? He says, I know, Helen, you've lost Anne's papers. I said, yes, I did. So he writes me a letter, given me full permission to recopy her marks from grade 1. So I crooked it all. I gave her a pass. In all her subjects she passed, and not only that, I raised her IQ to 46 or 47, which is not bad, it's quite high. It's like average, it's teachable. Her IQ before was totally unteachable. Comes the end of the year, I know she's going to fail. I said, Mr. Foote, it's pointless Anne failing. I'm going to teach Standard 5 this year. Let Anne come with me. Oh, he says, I can't fight with you, take her. She's going to fail the end of this year. So I was very, very friendly with the headmaster of St. Andrews. He was the cricketer, Mark Henning. Do you remember Mark Henning?
I do remember, sure.
Yeah, he was the cricketer and he was the headmaster. So I get her into St. Mary's, St. Andrews, I mean. I don't say one word. Before they write the entrance exam, I phone Mark Henning. I said, Mark, you never guess what happened. Can you believe it? And got not chicken pox, not measles, the other one that all the kids catch.
Mumps, maybe?
No. Was it mumps or measles? One of them. I said, she can definitely not write the exam. He says, oh, Helen, you don't have to worry. I trust you. Come and fetch the paper. So he did trust me, and I fetched the paper, and I wrote her exam. And she passed. Yeah. And I said to her, Anne, now you've got into the best school in Johannesburg. But I said to him, she's not verbal because she really has a lot of problems in her life. She can't speak well, but I'll come and do her English homework. I'll come, and she would come to me every Friday, spend the weekend with me, and then go back home, go back to St. Andrews. Well, to cut 5 terrible years, she managed, she passed, she matriculated. She got a university pass, did BSc nursing, and became the chief pediatric sister at Morningside Clinic.
Are you serious?
Yeah. She now lives in New Zealand, and I'm trying to find her. Oh, I can't find her. I've asked everyone.
Maybe go on Facebook.
I have. I don't know if they died or what.
Wow, Helen,
Yeah.
this is just
You know, these are just 2 isolated cases of my very, 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 very many teaching years.
I want to tell you something quite nice about Asia Jack. We have somebody who's helping my mom from Zimbabwe,
Oh,
and her sister has a kid who's been staying at our place where we are,
oh,
and the little kid goes to Asia Jack.
oh, really? A black kid?
A black kid, Zimbabwean. They're like refugees from Zimbabwe,
Mm-hmm.
and the parents pay for his education,
Oh, wow.
and he goes to Asia Jack.
Now, Amanda was the first black child at H.A. Jack. That was the little girl that I brought up. Because when they opened up the schools to de-schooling, whatever it was, I quickly went there and I said, if she gets in, I'll do the plays, whatever. So Amanda goes in and writes. There was a whole big photograph of me in my desk and Amanda writing the entrance exam. Of course, she got in. She was the first black child.
And this was
At
before
Waverley.
94, way before 94.
Yeah, just after 94, when blacks were allowed in government schools. It was 94, hey, Jude? Jude, you remember I gave you that copy of that thing that Elie Wiesel wrote? Dear teacher, you are a teacher. I have seen things. Have you got it?
I'll go and find the computer.
Will you have a look, Judela? Oh, you darling person.
And Helen, can I ask you mentioned that you had apologized to the Beit Din.
Oh, that one, oh my gosh. That was a story. See, I got very involved with the Union of Jewish Women. I knew nothing about being Jewish. Came from a very, 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 unfortunately, and I mean unfortunately, and to all the people and the young people that might be listening to this, please don't think, oh, it's a waste of time. What do you have to be religious for? What do you have to be observant for? It's a whole different way of life in bringing up your children, because I could see the difference. I know I had a wonderful home. I came from the most cultural Jewish home anybody could imagine. I had the best time. Friday night, all the chazonim,
Yeah.
I know I shouldn't say this, all chazonim would come to my mother, eat the food that wasn't kosher. Oh yes,
Really?
my mother made the
Oh, yeah.
best
We won't be
gerichten.
mentioning names.
Like
but-
Pucha, no, I won't tell you which ones, but I'll tell you privately which guys came. And they would come, the chazonim would leave the Beryl Chagi shul, leave this shul, and they'd drive to my mom, and it would be a Friday night of Yiddish songs, Yiddish music, chazonas. Oh, it was phenomenal. It was heaven on earth.
They drive on Shabbos?
Yep. And I'll tell you who some of were, but not over there.
Okay, wow.
No, definitely not. Oh, yes, they all came to my mother on a Friday night.
And it wasn't kosher?
No, my mother never kept kosher.
But it
You know
wasn't,
what?
you didn't have, it was, did you have like really not kosher? Like,
No, no porks or anything like that. No, nothing like that. But you know what? I remember my mother always salting and koshering meat. I remember it. Putting all the salt and letting the blood run through because her mom did.
So maybe it was in a way kosher.
But I didn't come
Did
from
you
a
have candles?
religious home.
Did your parents like candles?
No, they were against everything. They belonged to the Jewish Workers' Club. Did you do anything on the Jewish Workers' Club? Oh, that was phenomenal. The Jewish Workers' Club was where all the so-called intelligentsia, you know, they weren't that intelligentsia, but they thought they were. And Molly Pickin was there. I remember as a little girl sitting on the pavement and watching the Jewish Workers' Club burn down by the brown shirts.
Really?
Mm. We had to sit outside Crystal's and we sat and watched. Yeah, my father was very, very involved with the Jewish Workers' Club, with the socialist movements and organizations. He was very involved. I had the most wonderful, wonderful upbringing though, but not a religious one.
Something like Yom Kippur, would you go to shul? Or?
I phoned my Baba the whole time. Must I go to school? Must I go to shul? Always. My aunts were all from and observant.
And on a Pesach, did you have a Seder?
Always.
Oh, so it was still traditional.
Oh, no, very traditional. No. Well, all my two uncles, they were two brothers married, two sisters. We'd always have Pesach there. And Pesach was this long table, and all of us sitting at the end, and my uncle going, quiet! And my aunt going, Chad Gadiot. To me, that was Pesach. But I don't know if you know that I write this kids series, Shooby-Doob Shloimi.
I've heard of it, yeah.
Have you? I'll give you a CD for whoever wants them. And when you actually think, it's quite funny that I wrote the Pesach CD, and I wrote the Shabbos one, and I wrote the Mitzvah one, and if you'd looked at my life 60 years ago, you would never believe it.
So you looking at somebody who is brought up more traditional, you think you would advise the family to go that route?
Undoubtedly. There are no two ways about it, and I'm prepared to argue with anybody or discuss it with anyone. It is the only way, without a doubt.
It's really nice to hear that.
As I say to my grandsons, and my daughters from, and my nephews, and my son-in-law's unbelievable, gives the best shiur better than any rabbi. He on a Friday and Saturday, I love it. But you know the boys, do we have to wear tzitzit? Why must we wear tzitzit? Our friends don't wear tzitzit. Why must we wear a kippah? Why must I? You know how the boys are, I don't have to tell you. And so I said to them one day when they were very small, I said, you know, my boy, when you're in a rugby team or a soccer team and you wear the soccer socks and the soccer pants and the soccer shirt, nobody says, why must I wear it? But that's your uniform to show that you're in the soccer team. So this is your uniform to show you're in Hashem's team. That's all. And they accepted it when they were small. But the older boys are, although the one older one went to King David, but I must say he's done a lot of converting there. Mm.
And you taught at King David as well?
Mm.
Was it very different teaching at King David compared to like Waverley or Red Hill?
No, not really. You know what? When you teach, you teach. It makes no difference. It's not the school. It's you, the person.
And what did you teach? Was it drama?
No. I taught English and Afrikaans. And then at King David and H.A. Jack, I think I did maths and science as well. Because then when you taught Standard 5, you had to teach all the subjects. But when I was at high school, I taught English and Afrikaans. And then, eventually, after having been kicked out of King David, I'm very happy to tell you the story.
Okay, I was at King David myself.
Where? Which one?
Linksfield.
When?
So I matriculated in 77.
I was at King David, Linksfield. I left H.A. Jack. I was at H.A. Jack from 61 to 68. Then I went to King David, Linksfield, and I was there from 68. We were in the primary school and the high school, just the high school. Because you would have remembered all the plays that we did. And then I was at King David from 68 to 78.
In the primary school?
And then in the 80s, the later 80s, I went back just to do educational drama because I didn't get on with a certain principal who kicked me out.
This was the primary school? Because the high school, we had, you speak about education, there was
Mr.
Elliot
Sander.
Wolf.
Were you with Elliot?
And my late grandmother taught Elliot Wolf.
Oh, really?
Zahava Swick, Zahava
Oh.
Archula.
Wow, hang on.
She taught many people, many. She was a Hebrew principal at Bernard Patley, and many people went through hers.
Wow. But hang on a sec. Do you have another relation that teaches at Swick? Afrikaans, teaches Afrikaans? No, because my grandson went to Mrs. Swick for Afrikaans.
So our family, my late great-grandfather was in Lithuania. He was a Hebrew teacher, and they spoke Hebrew at home in Marienpol. So it comes from a family of teachers.
Gee, well, no, I love teaching. I loved my teaching years, even now. They often ask me at lots of schools just to go in and sort some things out in the classes, and I love it. I really do love it.
So you have done so many things. If we look at your, it's like an illustrious part, your illustrious career. It really is. You in drama, in teaching, in television, and you've excelled in each.
But the
field.
best was starting in television here. Oh my God!
How many years were you involved with SABC?
1994, 92 to about. I'm trying to work out how long have I had leukemia. It's the only way I can work it out. 23 years, 24 years maybe, something like that.
So it's a miracle.
Not that long, yep. Not that long. As I always say, I'm the oldest living patient that my oncologist has.
Well, I'd may have streamed to 120 in
enough, he says. I won't tell you what he says because he uses bad language with me. He only talks to me like that, not to anybody else, but don't worry. He says to me, "You're full of shit, don't put that on."
Helen, I'll just mention, with the power of television, there was a program, I don't know if you were involved in the production, the grandson of the King of Swaziland, Nati Gamezi, and I watched it on SABC.
Can I tell you about Nati?
So Nati I'm very close with.
Are you?
Extremely close with.
You asked Nati about me.
So.
I was the first white person to have him in their home. Ever.
Really?
Because I had a black child. So somebody said to me, oh, we've got this friend, Nati Gomezi, and he's at Wits University illegally because the whole story, do you know Nati's whole story with how he learned Hebrew? Do you know Moshe Sharon?
It's a very small world. When I had my event that we organized at the World Mizrahi, so I invited Moshe Sharon. Moshe Sharon is my neighbor's brother-in-law.
Really?
It's a very small world.
When you see
Moshe
him,
Sharon
give him my love. I adore
I know
Moshe.
his wife Judy.
I love Judy. I am mad about
it's
Judy.
A small world.
But you see, because I'm very friendly with Paula Slayer and her husband and her boyfriend, and they're not from at all. So I have this conflict between the two, between Paula and the Sharons and Paula.
No,
I was very friendly with Moshe, very friendly
so Moshe
when he was here.
He was head of the Hebrew department.
Yeah.
And
He has only chairs.
Through Moshe Sharon, he saw Nati reading
that's
Hebrew
right.
newspaper, and he offered him
he
a
couldn't
bursary
believe
in
it.
Israel.
You know what happened? I'll tell you what actually happened many years ago. So we were all at my place, and
so Nati you were the first person to invite
first
him.
White person who had him for a meal. And they said, "Don't worry, you can come to her." There was only one kosher restaurant, and that was in Yeovil, or Dawnfontein. It was a red plastic place. I'll never forget it. We all went for supper there, and they said to me, "Nati, you can eat at her place." She had just started going kosher because he wasn't,
He wasn't Jewish.
No, because I'll never forget when Moshe said to me, because I was very, very friendly with Moshe and Judy, very friendly. So, I met
a small world.
Moshe with such a fight. I called him a prig. I said, "You're a right-winged, conservative, self-opinionated." You can't believe what I said to him.
And now you're best of friends.
Very good friends, yeah. Very good friend.
You know, he was...
He didn't like me. He wasn't mad about black people. You know that.
Well, I don't
No,
know
no,
that,
no,
but he
I'm
was
telling you.
very involved with in Camp David. He was very close with Menachem Begin. He was his
Absolutely.
advisor on
Of course, on Arab
affairs.
affairs, yes. When I used to go with Moshe into the old city, and all these Arabs would walk backwards in front of him and bow down because he knew the whole Quran.
Sure. He's a world expert on comparative religions.
Oh, he's unbelievable.
And also on the Baha'i.
And he can cook. His food is outstanding. But you know, like everything in life, and when I left Israel this time, I said, Moshe, you're going to hear from me. He says, I'll hear from you.
It's a small
Will you?
world.
Promise.
But Helen, of course, Helen, I'll mention something. I saw the movie of Nati that was shown on SABC TV.
Yeah, that was put on by, I'll tell you his name. He used to work with me.
It was incredible. I wanted to get it, and I couldn't get it through SABC, but I knew the people involved, from Osamer, from Chabad, and I actually went to the director and I bought the original VHS.
Oh, did you get it from Wayne?
Not from Wayne. There was
Wasn't it Wayne Copping?
I forget her name, but she has children living in Telstone in Israel. She lives in Santon. I went to her home and I bought the original VHS.
I'll tell you who it was. You got it from Marion, not Marion.
It was
Am I
Marion.
right?
It was Marion.
I'm very friendly with Marion.
And I converted with Nati's because I...
MJ.
That's right. I converted to a DVD, and with Nati's permission, I gave it to a patient of mine who works for Israeli television.
Wow.
And Israeli television were in negotiation with SABC for over a year, and they bought the rights, and it was shown on Israeli television with Hebrew subtitles.
Oh, really?
And they showed often in the time of just before Shavuot, because it's a year,
of course, that's a story.
And it's written, and it's connected to Shavuot.
Yeah, and he now lives in...
he was in Yerushalayim and he's moved to Tzfat.
He's in Tzfat,
And to tell you what a small world this is, there's one black family, the Marathi family, that have converted in Yeshiva College, that I'm very close with the family.
Oh,
and his son's in Yeshiva, and he's been to my home in Beitvegan many times. And they were in Israel just before I came to South Africa. I met them, and they were going to Tzfat, and I said, it would be so nice if you could meet with Nati. So I got them in touch with each other on the phone, and they spoke to each other, and they're meeting when I think they either met or they are going to be meeting in Tzfat.
No, Nati was amazing, and his knowledge of Chazonis. I knew a lot, I know a lot about Chazonis because although I didn't come from a religious background, but my parents and all the Chazonim would always sing, and I knew all the nigunim of everything, and I loved it. As a matter of fact, I wrote a whole thing on Jewish music, which I used on one of my programs, I can't even remember. But I love Chazonis. And when Nati heard that I liked Chazonis, he was finished.
So Nati, I can't believe it. Nati came to your home. So we had a talk where Nati spoke, and we organised it. It was last year, and Steve Lindley from the Jerusalem Post came, and it was written up very nicely in Jerusalem Post, and it was well attended. There were over 100 people that came to the World Mizrahi Center with Doron Peretz is the head of World Mizrahi, and it was lovely. We had Professor Sharon was there. I had it was a lovely evening, and Nati spoke, and he came all the way from Tzfat. And also organised him to come to Bay Protea in that's in Herzliya, and he came, and it was amazing.
Well, I remember when Moshe first brought him to Israel, because Moshe wrote who was the head of Hebrew. I can't remember, the dean or the professor that he'd met in Africa. You can't find it, Judela. I'll get it from home, and that he had met this black man that could read Hebrew and do dikduk better than anybody else. Better than anybody else could. And this was Moshe talking about Nati.
He's fluent in over 14 languages. I gave him
He was sworn translator German.
He translated for the German embassy. He was official. And he was also
this
for the
is
Supreme
Nati,
Court.
Judela. You remember Nati?
He was also the German translator for the Supreme Court.
Really?
It's quite amazing.
No, Nati was amazing. I was mad about Nati. But what did I want to say? I wanted to mention one thing about Nati, Mr. Nati Gumedi. Flip, I can't remember what I wanted to say. Jude, I think I'm getting a little bit older.
So he's married and he lives in Svat.
Yeah, he lives in Svat. He's got this from girl.
It's wonderful. They've been in a home and...
but how's he doing financially? Not good.
He was supposed to come to South Africa for Pesach last year. Unfortunately, it fell through. But because he's done a few talks, a lot of people want him to, as a lecturer and just as a visiting rabbi. So
you know what, Jude?
there are many opportunities.
Maybe Emunah should bring him out again. He's wonderful.
He's very inspiring. His story is incredible.
And I always said to him, you know what, Nutty? If you marry Sissy, then you'll marry into a sort of Jewish home.
So I'll tell you what I do. With the video that I have, and I put it on YouTube with his permission, I've shown many people all over the world, the grandson of the king of Swaziland who became a rabbi.
Yeah.
And it has inspired people. It's incredible when they see that they cannot believe it, because the story is just remarkable. It's incredible. And to think that it's been shown on Israeli television, and it had such an impact whoever sees it.
Yeah, it's
and
true.
To think you were the first person to invite him into
the first
your home.
white person to have him in their home was Nati Gumedi. Now,
so
Nati,
you have a very important part to play in his journey.
his life, yeah.
Absolutely.
So Nati, my brother lives in Swaziland, and my brother has Swazi candles there. Have you ever seen Swazi candles? It's unbelievably beautiful. His stuff. Have you got anything here, Jude? No, his stuff is magnificent. And Nutty and Bernie was sort of like type of friendly, because there was another guy called Jeff Marachetzi. Have you done anything on Jeff, who converted to Judaism, but he's busy dying now of cancer? And also a wonderful story. And he and Nutty were very friendly.
So Nutty's very close with, there's a Rabbi Kadoz in Beit Vegan where I live, and he translated from the original texts. So not only does he knows classical Hebrew, he knows modern Hebrew.
Everything.
And I gave him once a old letter, because I'm very involved with stamps and postal history, on an old Italian letter that no one could translate, and he translated it for me. He's an incredible genius, and when he speaks to the youth, he has so much to offer. And whoever hears him, it's so it's inspirational. It's incredible.
Nutty's amazing.
So Helen, you had a tremendous role to play in his
early
journey.
life. In his early life.
Wow! If not for Helen, who knows what would have happened?
He would have.
You've changed lives.
He would have got hold of Moshe Sharon. I was telling you about Moshe. So Moshe Sharon says to me one day, you and the. You won't put this on.
So then let's
rather not.
But Moshe Sharon today, he's
become very. For him, it's very liberal, because he says to me, "Well, I'm telling you something right here and right now. I've never been more disappointed in anybody than I've been in Nati Gumedi. Why, Moshe? Because he's disappeared. I told you right at the beginning, he's not this great big genius. I'm telling you now that he's one of these Arabs that are trying to filter himself into the Jewish community."
So can I mention something? And I think this is incredible. When I invited Professor Sharon to that evening, he hadn't been in touch with Nati since he came to Israel. And at that evening when he came, Nati thanked him in his opening remarks, and he was crying when he actually met Professor Sharon and Judy.
Do you know why?
And it's a circle that had here. He said, and he thanked him, and he remembered my neighbor's son. It was incredible, and he remembered Professor Sharon inviting him and opening his home to him in Israel.
That's right.
And it was, he thanked him so much for being there when he needed to be there when he first came to Israel, and he apologized for the break that they had in all those years.
And in
a way they made peace.
But you know what the break was? Do you know what the break was? Because Nati said to Moshe that he wants to convert to Judaism. And Moshe said to Nati, we don't take convertees, we don't want convertees. You can be interested in the language, you can become a professor of the Hebrew language, you don't need to be Jewish. Don't convert. Your grandfather's a minister or a priest, and your dad, they were all of them.
They were very involved in the church.
Very involved. And
he's got a brother. He's got a brother who's a pastor.
Absolutely. And Moshe said, don't. I didn't know that you'd met him just after that. And Moshe said to me, you see, I knew. I haven't seen him already 3 or 4 years. And this was the period while Nati was converting. And when he converted, he went back to see Moshe.
And he has Karasa Tov. And in the opening remarks, you'll watch that evening. It was really, it was amazing. People were crying. It was very emotional.
Yeah.
But he really thanked Moshe and Judy for just being
well,
it was like his adopted parents in
They
Israel.
were. Then that was true, because he stayed. First of all, he went to
Spent
stay with
many
Moshe.
Shabbases there, many.
Yeah, when he first went, when Moshe said, I'll get you into Jerusalem University, I think that's where he went first. When I get you in there, yeah. You'll come there and you'll stay with us. Nobody could believe it. Nobody would believe it.
So I have a patient that it's through Nati that he became religious.
Oh, really?
And he lives in Telstar. It's just incredible. His wife's a doctor and he's got a PhD. And it's through Nati that he became religious. So you had a lot to play in this. Helen, it's all Mina Shamayim. Okay, you mentioned, and I'm intrigued to think, why did you have to apologize to the vet then?
Me? Oh, I didn't tell you that story. Okay, so I do a lot of writing.
Can we put it on?
Yes, you can put this on. I have no problem whatsoever. So Judy knows all about it, because Judy's a very big macher in Emunah. She's the president of Emunah South, whatever. So Pearl Mandelstam, I'm sure you don't know her. She was like the doyen of Jewish intellectualism and Jeanette Cohen in this country. They were the head of the Union of Jewish Women. And the Union of Jewish Women wasn't an orthodox organization, but it was not a knot. It was just it was the Union of Jewish Women. So they got hold of me, and I knew nothing. If I tell you I know nothing, then I knew nothing. Now, because I've got a machatenister that davens 3 times a day and only reads when she reads her books and only reads all her seforim. So I've learnt a little bit. So Pearl Mandelstam phones me. She says, Helen Heldenmuth, this is Pearl Mandelstam. She was very posh. She died at 105. I was actually at her 100th birthday in Miami. So she says to me, and we've got the 40th anniversary of the Union of Jewish Women, and the International Council of Jewish Women are coming to South Africa. We would love a musical about all the work that we do. We will give you the info, because I knew nothing, and would you write it and produce it? I said, sure, thank you, I'd love to. So they give me all the info, and I write it, and I produce it, and I direct it, and it was really, really great. And here we are, every Jewish organization, and the front row, every one of the Rabbonim are there. Now, I don't know if you ever knew of Chayla Rosenthal. She was a Yiddish actress. She was in Cape Town. I was very friendly with her daughter, Nava Piat, who unfortunately subsequently died. And Nava wrote and sang, and she was really lovely. I said, oh, Nav, I've got a lovely thing for you. And she sang beautifully, and she was so good. And I write this wonderful thing, and I take it to them first. I would never put it on without, oh, it's brilliant, it's clever. So I won't give you all the songs. The one song goes like this. Pankhurst set the women free. Why we still in slavery? That is halakha. Yeah, baby. That is halakha. But Nava was very, very sensual, and she like shook her boobs. And I knew nothing that you don't behave like that or wear black tights. And the other song was, Rabbi, oh, give me a get. I'll get that man yet. Give me a get. Rabbi, oh, I'm filled with remorse. Oh, give me a Jewish divorce. He beats me. They keep their mouths shut. Oh, I can't remember the whole thing.
And you wrote this?
Yeah, I wrote it and directed it, and the whole show was lovely. It was all the work done by the Union of Jewish Women. And then at that point, all the Rabbonim stood and walked out. They all got out.
Okay, but you know, can I just say, I think they did because it's called a show. Most probably.
Or maybe because Nava was singing.
It wasn't maybe the words, because I think that they would have taken in jest, but it was because a woman was singing.
They didn't. So the next thing that happens, the Union of Jewish Women get a letter written by the Beth Din that they are no longer allowed to call themselves the Union of Jewish Women. They can be the Union of any women, but definitely not Jewish women, because nothing Jewish about them, not their behavior, not their thing, not the everything. So now they're beside themselves. What can they do? So I go to this meeting. Everybody everywhere else is raving, and the other half are, oh, how could you write that? Basically, really, I mean, it's a disgrace. It's a disgrace, You don't do it, eh? You don't write things like that. But they told me. So I said, look, it's no skin off my back. I really don't care who I talk to. I will apologise. I'll go. So I go to the Best Inn, and I wear a dress and sleeves. And Rabbi Casper and what's that other rabbi's name, Jude? No, not Baumgarten. He was scared of me. Huh?
Rabbi
Isaacs, Rabbi Isaacs.
Rabbi Isaacs was from Cyril Dean Shaw.
He was great.
He sat there like this. They all sat there like this, looking at me. So I said, how about a little smile?
You're not shy.
They just sat there like this with these long faces. I said, well, if nobody's going to talk. So I said to them, my honoured Rabbonim, all I have come to do is to apologise for something that I didn't know. I said, I was given all this information and I wrote it. I said, my knowledge of Judaism is nothing. I don't know what you can do. I don't know what you can't do. And I left it to those people who know more than I do. And on behalf of the Union of Jewish Women, I rather you put me into Cherem than take away their Union of Jewish Women thing. And they looked at one another and smiled, and that was the end of it.
But it takes a big person to do what you did. It really does.
I don't know, I had to do it for them. I mean, but it wasn't my fault. It really wasn't, because they all approved of it. Did they, Jude? They all approved it, and everybody loved it.
And it wasn't a scandal, it wasn't in the papers or anything, it just blew away.
There was a little thing, Deputy President of Union of Jewish Women apologises to Best Inn.
Okay.
That's also right. Doesn't worry me an iota. Oh, no. Hang on a sec. I wasn't the Deputy President then. That was a bit later. Hey, Judith, that was a bit later. Very much later, when I'd started learning a little bit, or finding out who and what I am, and whatever the case may be.
Sure, Helen, this has been just, there's no words to describe it. You really are an icon. You're quite amazing.
No, I'm just lucky.
Wow.
I'm lucky because I've got my machatinister.
Your parents, they might not have been religious, but your grandparents and your parents, they instilled such a love for Yiddishkeit.
No, my parents gave me a love for Yiddishkeit.
You see it.
Without all this sort of infighting and in-bickering between what you can eat, what you can't eat. It was
you have a love for
I had from a
Yiddishkeit.
wonderful Jewish home, and an incredible love for Yiddishkeit and Yiddish poetry and Yiddish literature and Yiddish music.
That's wonderful.
As a result of which I do this Yiddish show on Chai. Don't you want to come on to it?
I listen to it. I listen to it in Israel very often.
Do you?
Yeah, and I understand Yiddish, but just
We got this
can't.
call once, remember, Jude? Hallo? Was ist das? Red Jiddisch. Und da mache ich, red Jiddisch. Ich bin da in Jerusalem. Das ist Jerusalem. Who was he, Rabbi who, Jude? Rabbi Leitner in Jerusalem, und ich habe ein Programm in Yiddish, und darum mache ich, do you remember, Jude? Huh?
That's okay. It would be nice to have him on your program.
But I'll tell you, what's very nice in Israel, I have a lot of patients, I work also in Gola, and a lot of the Hasidic patients, the kids only speak Yiddish.
Yeah.
So I have a very good connection with them, and I understand, Fisher Yiddish, we understand. And,
Oh, that's lovely.
and you see, the language is alive, it's very much alive.
Oh, without a
it's
doubt.
very, very much alive in the religious circles.
As people say, oh, it's a dying language, I will say, no, it's not. It's holzig beim Sterben. It holds on to death, but it will never, ever, ever die.
So there's two very big yeshivas, the Meir Yeshiva and the Brisk Yeshiva.
Oh, yeah.
And they have specific shiurim in Yiddish, because you just can't translate. And
No.
when you hear the Rebbe giving the drosha, and it's in Yiddish, it adds a different dimension.
No, Yiddish is totally untranslatable. That's what's so wonderful about the language, Like I always say, and I'm sure Judy's sick of hearing me saying it, you can even take Shakespeare and translate it into Yiddish and not lose one bit of rhythm. And Shakespeare is obviously all rhythm. I mean, if you had to say, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? You can say, kann ich euch zugleichen zur Summe dicker Tag. It's all there, it can't. But you can't translate anything out of Yiddish, because we once told a joke on the program But I didn't translate it for Judy because I knew she wouldn't tell it, because Judy's a real lady. She's not like me. So told this joke on the radio, and the last words were in Yiddish. But once you translate it, it ruins the joke. It's no longer funny.
That's true.
Do you remember that one, Jude?
The
Hmm?
butcher.
The butcher,
Wow.
yeah. Yeah, it was really lovely. We had a wonderful time. But I thoroughly enjoyed. But I'm very lucky because I enjoy everything that I do. You know, whether I'm cooking or whatever. And I love making Yiddish Gerichten.
It's wonderful. So, Helen, I just want to really thank you so much for your very valuable time and for having this great schut, this great honor to
Thank
to
you.
hear these just mind-boggling and just incredible your adventure, your journey through life, and
No,
what
no,
you've
no.
achieved, and
All
you're
I-
so inspirational.
Thank you for listening.
Helen, you are so inspirational, and you really are somebody. I think we should all strive to emulate. That your outlook on life, and you're positive, and I mean somebody with leukemia, and look at you. You would never dream that you.
I'll go and put on more makeup. Hang on a sec.
It's incredible.
I walk around with my bag with my makeup. My little granddaughter says, Babu, put on makeup, you thick.
And you really are. You really are. You are unique, and you are very special. And we are very privileged to have you in this community.
Thank you.
And
Thank
I
you.
really
Not
want to
really.
thank you. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart.
And thank you for bringing up Nutty. Oh my gosh.
So a lot will happen from this. I'm very close with Professor Sharon. Judy's a patient of mine even.
Oh,
And,
I love
His
Judy.
brother-in-law.
Isn't Judy wonderful?
His brother-in-law is one of my closest friends, even though he's much older than me. But we
Oh,
next
which
door
brother?
neighbours. Judy's brother.
Judy's brother.
Sure, we're very close.
And I'm very close to all
And
Judy's kids.
When you come to Israel next, we invite you again. I'll introduce you. You'll come over.
I always
You'll
stay
meet the
with
family.
I always stay with Judy and
And
Moshe.
Really?
Hmm. I stay in the
So
little
you must
room
know
on the
Julian
side.
and Gigit.
Sure.
They when we came to Beitwagan, they were like our closest friends. And we've
Really?
remained all the years.
Yeah, I always go with
In
Judy.
fact, their granddaughter, Rivka's got a daughter, and they named after our daughter Shironi.
Oh,
There's two Shironis in
really?
the world. Our
Wow.
daughter, they like the name Shironi, and they named their daughter Shironi.
Oh, wow. And his kids
It's
are
a
lovely.
very small world.
His boys are gorgeous. He's lovely. Judy is incredible.
Well, so are you. And
He told me he fell in love with her legs. So he saw her walking in London at university, and he saw these legs. He says, now that's who I'm going to marry. That's how he met her.
So I'll just end off with my next door neighbor, Julian. He once, I think it was on their 50th anniversary, he said that when he went to meet Gigit, his future wife, there was a shidduch, he goes into this restaurant in Antwerp, and he meets this most beautiful girl, this exquisite girl. He said 5 minutes later, Gigit walked in. And
Wow.
he has such a beautiful sense
Gee
of
whiz,
humor.
isn't that
And
gorgeous?
everybody took it so nicely.
Oh, that's lovely. That's lovely.
But Helen, really
But-
thank you so much.
Just one thing, I just want to mention one. There's so many things. Just one thing, in all the very many years that I've taught for a very, very long time, what does this go on to?
Well, I'm going to put this on to
Yeah, what does it go on to?
YouTube.
Onto YouTube. If there are any ex-H.A. Jack, King David, when we did those poetry books, the kids used to write their own poetry book, and we used to have poetry reading by candlelight. These guys are in their 60s now. They're 65, and I've got the books at home with all the poems in. So if anybody wants to find their own poetry books, please just shout at me.
Wonderful. Okay, so we'll make the connection.
But I want you to come upstairs now.
Thank you
Because
so much, Helen.
you cannot come